Okay, are we ready? I'm ready. Alright, this is Excercise 5, and we're going to start working with some bigger data. It's not really big data yet, but we've got some fairly big data that we're going to work with and do some kind of interesting stuff with. So the first thing you need to do is download this financial sample data and open it in Excel. And then the second thing that we need to do is use a formula to extract the year, month, and date from the date column. So let's have a look at this data. So here we've got order numbers, segment, which is where they sell these products, the country, the product name, how many units were sold, gross sales. What does gross sales mean? Anyone know?
Sales minus cost?
Well, not really. Gross sales is like the total sales amount. And G should actually just say gross sales is $32,000. That's the total amount that you sold, that you billed for that product. And then COGS, cost of goods sold, is how much it cost you to buy those products before you sold them. So you brought in $32,000, but you had to pay someone $20,000 to buy those products in the first place. So in total, your profit would be roughly $12,000. Okay, and then we've got a date column, shows when this transaction was. How many rows of data do we have here? Can we just scroll down? So if you scroll down, what happens? Your fingers get spread. Okay, so we need some navigation commands. To go up and down quickly and right to the end of a list, what you have to do is hold down the Shift Control keys together, and on Macintosh it's Shift and Command, and then push the down arrow. So I'm going to put my cursor right here on the 15001, hold Shift, Control, and down, and that automatically takes me all the way to the bottom. And then I can do the same thing again, Shift, Control, up arrow, and go to the very top. So these keyboard shortcuts are really important. They're kind of important for this exercise, and for the next one they're really important because in exercise 6 we're going to be working with, I think the data has 10,000 rows of data. So it's getting fairly big. Okay, the first one is we have to get the year. What do you think a formula is to get the year out of that date?
Equals year, parentheses, and where the date is at?
Yeah, it's real easy. So equals year, parentheses, tell it where to go look, close it, and you're done. So that's really easy. And to copy this down, I can just click there and drag it down, right? And that works, but it takes forever. So what's a better way to get this formula all the way down? Double click on that box. So my cursor's right over it, double click, and it copies it all the way down. Now I'll do Shift Control down, and just make sure that it worked right. It looks pretty good. Okay, formula for month.
Same thing, instead of year you put month.
Equals month. And then I'll double click to get it to go down all the way. So that's pretty easy so far, right? And then net profit. Net profit.
Is F minus G.
F minus G. So gross sales minus cost of goods sold. So equals that minus that. Does that look good?
Minus G.
Yeah, I'm doing the gross sales, subtracting the cost of goods sold, that gives me my net profit. I've got some negatives in there. Looks like I lost some money. What about unit production cost? How do I get unit production cost?
E times G.
D times G?
E.
E times G. So G is cost of goods sold for that whole order. So it would be divide, wouldn't it?
Divide, yes.
So G divided by E, does that make sense? Is that right? Unit production cost. How much does it cost me to produce each unit? So if I take G divided by E, does that give it to me? Copy that guy down. Net per unit. So my net profit per unit. How do I get that?
F divided by E.
F divided by E?
No, that's F. No.
No?
K divided by E.
Okay, yes.
K divided by E. That looks good. And I'll copy that down. Okay, so we're done the first part. We've taken some raw data and we've divided, multiplied, added, subtracted to build some more information or some more data. We've expanded our data. But it's still kind of hard to get any real information from this, right? Like, which country is the most profitable? Can we tell that? Or which product is the most profitable? Or which segment costs the most to service? Can we get any of that information from this? How?
Filter it.
Filter it?
Break it down.
Filter it, break it down. How about if we do a pivot table? And I think that's the next. So we're on 6 now. Insert a pivot table. It shows monthly net profit for each country. Have you ever heard of a pivot table?
Yes.
Have you ever used it? No?
Heard of it? Seen it?
So pivot tables are really nice for taking a really big chunk of data and making some sense out of it. They're very easy to do, so let's do one. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select all this data. What's the best way to do that? Just click up there. It's one way to do it, but there's a caution. There might be some other junk out in the side that might cause you some trouble. So in order to make sure you've got really good clean data going in your pivot table, it's better to not use that quick feature. So instead I'm going to start with country I'm going to hold Shift and Control keys down, or Shift and Command on Apple. Then I'll do my right arrow. That took me all the way to the right. And now I'm going to do my down arrow. That took me all the way to the bottom. So now I can see that I've captured that block of data, and that's what I want to get. Okay, next step, I want to insert a pivot table. So I'll go to Insert. Right up on the top corner is Pivot Table. And it brings up a dialog box. It's saying what's the range that you want. So I already gave it the range by selecting that. And then in the center here, do I want it on a new worksheet or on an existing one? I could just put it off to the right, but I want to put it on a new worksheet so it's nice and clean and nothing else is messing up the information. So I'll put it on the new. And I get a little bit of stuff on my screen. So notice over here on the bottom right, we've got a couple things. We're going to ignore filters for now, but we want to look at rows, columns, and the values that go in those rows and columns. So the first question that we need to answer is we want monthly net profit for each country. Monthly net profit for each country. So I'm going to put countries on the rows, and then I'm going to put net profit at the top. So all I need to do that is I'm going to grab countries here, and I'm going to drag it down to the rows area. Notice when I did that, it's already building my table. So I've got Canada, France, Mexico, United States, Germany. And then I want net profit per unit. Is that right? So let's see if I drag that over to values. So it gave me a little bit of information. I've got total net profit for each one of those countries. Looks like Mexico and United States are not very good, are they? Got negatives.
Looks different.
This looks different. Okay, let me show you why. So these tables, I'll get to that in a minute. I just want to show you one more thing. Let's go. I want to look at each country, and I want to look at market segments. So if I find market segment in my list here,
We didn't add that.
they don't have that.
We didn't add it because we started from country.
That's right. On the left-hand side, far left-hand side,
Oh,
there
I
were some
didn't.
cells.
I missed some. Bad table. Okay, let's start over. Okay, I'm going to go to A.
So should I go back?
Yeah, go back. Delete it. It's real easy to delete.
We should have just used the corner.
Okay, let's just use that corner and select everything. You can use it, just make sure you have clean data. Is everyone back with us? I'm going to have to edit this out on the video. No one will ever know that I made a mistake because I'm going to chop it.
All right.
Okay, so now we're going to insert a pivot table. So we select all the data and go to Insert, Pivot Table. I just did that real quick because the default is put it on the main sheet. Is everyone here? Okay, what I want to put now is I want countries on the rows and I want segments on the columns. So all I have to do is find them on my list. Here's country. There's segment. So it's already building that chart.
Okay.
I've got all the countries there, and I've got the 4 or 5 different segments at the top. Notice I have some blanks now. You know why I have blanks?
Because you picked up the whole chart from the corner.
Because I used that little corner thing and I selected that whole table instead of just the data. So let's put a blank in. So let's put some junk into my table. It's not as clean as if we had just selected our stuff. But it's okay for now. Okay, and then I want net per unit for each of those. So I'm going to drag that down to the values section. I've got a start of a table, but there's a few things I don't like. For one thing, it's got like 10 different decimal places, or 10 levels of decimal. So I don't like that. That's too many decimals. I want to just deal with dollars. The other thing is I'm adding the net profit. I've got sum of net profit, and I might not want that. So first, I'm going to select this whole page, and I'm going to format it. So right-click somewhere, format cells, and I want to turn this into currency. So now I've got something that's a little nicer to look at. I've got rid of all those decimals. Next thing I want to do is, notice my thing disappeared here? If I click on the pivot table, it comes back. If I click somewhere else, it goes away. So if it disappears on you, just click on it. Notice down in the bottom corner here, it says sum of net profit. There's a lot of different ways you can summarize this data. The default for Windows computers is sum, and the default for Macintosh computers, I think, is count. So you're getting count. So this might not default to what you want. Notice there's a little triangle here. I'm going to click on that and go to Value Field Settings right at the bottom. And it brings up a bunch of different options. So I can do sum, count, average, minimum, maximum. A lot of different ways you can summarize your data. So I'm going to do average. Okay, now I have a table that gives me the average net profit per unit for each of these categories in each of these countries. And now I can just look at my information and I can see that Germany here for enterprise is really bad, and small business for Canada looks like it's really good. So from that huge database, I can summarize all this and I can now get some information from this. So this is a form of data mining. This is like the beginning of data mining. You're taking a big chunk of data and you're processing it in a way that you can find some information in that data. You can't see that kind of information if you just look at that big table of data. So let's try doing something else. I'm going to go back to my data. This time I just want to select just the data. I don't want the extra stuff. So Control Shift, right arrow, and then down arrow. That selected all my data. I'm going to do another pivot table. So Insert, Pivot Table on a new sheet. Now I've started all over. So how about we'll do products and segments. pick two things I want to relate to each other. And I just picked them at random. There's no magic to it. There's two different categories I want to compare together. Again, the format is ugly, so I want to reformat this whole sheet so I can look at it. So I'll click on the select all, right click, format cells, change that to currency. I want negatives to be red so I can see them better. Okay, this is giving me the total net profit for each product in each category. So now it's not sorted by countries, right? I put all the enterprise from every country together and all the products together. I could have sorted it by country. I can sort category and country and compare those together. Pretty well anything you want to compare, you can compare together. Notice on this table too, I don't have the blanks because I didn't select the whole sheet. I just selected the data and it gives me a little bit cleaner. And mine defaults to sum, so I'm going to change that. Field value settings. I'm going to go max. So that's giving me the maximum profit for each category, for each product type. I don't know if that really tells us anything. Questions so far? Let's see what else is on this list. So you have to do two different kinds of pivot tables. And I don't really care what sort of pivot tables you do, just do two different pivot tables, comparing some things together. And then it says make a summary sheet for total sales, for sales, manufactured goods, net profit. And you have to do your calculations from the raw data. So let's do that. I have a tab for that. Here. Summary sheet. So on this page, I want to have the total sales from all that data. And I need to use a formula to do it. The formula is pretty easy. So first thing I need to do is equals, parentheses. Now I need to tell it where my data is. So I'll go back to my data sheet. And I want total sales, so that's gross sales. So I click on the very first and hold down Shift Control keys and down arrow. And then I can hit enter. And I didn't put in the closing parentheses in Excel saying, hey, you missed the closing parentheses, do you want us to fix that for you? Yeah, sure. So there it is. That's my formula. And I did it wrong, didn't I? What did I do wrong in my formula? I missed some. There. It's a regular Excel formula, but my data is in a totally different place. So when I did that, it automatically put in the name of the tab that this data is on, and then it uses an exclamation point to say, okay, that's the end of the name for that data, and then it listed the cells, F2 to F701. Manufacturing cost is the same, so it's sum. Manufacturing cost is the same as cost of goods sold, right? So there's my formula for that one. And my total net profit, same thing. There's my formulas. I can format this to make it a little nicer. First of all, it's really small, isn't it? So this is a default format in Excel, and for money, it's really difficult to read that. You can't tell that's 12 million, 12 billion. It's just really difficult. So when you're using currency, it's better to format it. Format cells, number, I want currency. Now I can see what's going on. I've got 127 million in total sales. Is it a good business or no? Not really. It's losing $750,000 in 1 year. Okay, that's it for that assignment. Any questions? Do you want me to go through it again?
Can you go back to the summary sheet?
So you can use average, you can use sum, you can use min or max. Maybe you want to know what's the maximum profit item in Germany. Or maybe you want to know what's the average profit in the government section. You can decide any type of information that you want to try and extract from this data.